Segment 4, the disguise. Let me quote to you once again from Radical in Chief. At every turn, I'm quoting, at every turn, Obama has disguised his socialist past. Close quote. Explain that.
Well, in the book, I come across incident after incident where Obama has not told the truth to the American people about his political past, and he does this in different ways. Sometimes he lets a little bit slip out. So, for example, he says, when I was at Occidental College, I hung out with the Marxist professors. Well, we now know that he wasn't just hanging out with the Marxist professors. When he was at Occidental, he fully agreed with the Marxist professors. He was a very strong Marxist-Leninist at that time. He moderated later only in the sense that he came to this new stream of socialism. But at any rate, that gives you the sense of how Obama has a kind of non-disclosure-disclosure pattern. But it goes beyond that. One of the things I do in the book is to look into Obama's relationship with Acorn. I went to the previously unexplored archives of Acorn at the Wisconsin Historical Society and found that Obama had an extensive relationship with that organization over a period of many years.
You quote Barack Obama in Radical in Chief during his third debate with John McCain, quoting Barack Obama, "The only involvement I've had with Acorn was I represented them alongside the U.S. Justice Department in making Illinois implement a motor voter law," close quote. The only involvement he had with Acorn. Just not true?
That's where I use the L word, the lie word. I usually don't like to use the word lie. I say, well, it wasn't fully frank with the American people or whatnot. But I really think we have so much documentation now that we can fairly say that Obama consciously and knowingly lied to the American public about his relationship with Acorn during the 2008 election campaign. So really, Obama's tactics of disguise range from these non-disclosure disclosures to flat-out lies and almost everything on the spectrum in between.
Why is he disguising this? Barney Frank lets you know where he stands. Got elected over and over and over again from Massachusetts. Jeremiah Wright, Lord knows he'd let you know where he stands. Bill Ayers lets you know where he stands. These are so what's the disguise here?
Well,
Why is he going undercover?
I really don't think you could get elected as President of the United States if you acknowledged, frankly, how far left you really were. You may do it in Barney Frank's district. Bernie Sanders can say very frankly that he's a socialist and get elected as senator from Vermont. But it's just not going to fly with the American public to be President of the United States. And that's my real problem here. I'm not calling for boycotts of supporters of Bernie Sanders, banning them from work like in the blacklist days. I think this is really an issue of political honesty, which is required if democracy is going to work.
It starts early. I don't mean to be contentious. I'm just trying to draw you out here. I am genuinely curious about this. Obama serves in the Illinois state legislature, and then he's a senator from Illinois. Now, surely the legislature, the state legislature, has small enough districts you could get elected from Hyde Park or this. You can choose, and you could say, I'm a man of the left, and they'd elect you, right? You could do a Bernie Sanders, but he didn't, even then?
Well, I think he was a little bit more frank about his leftism when he was from Hyde Park, but from the moment that Obama was at Harvard and was selected as the first African-American editor of the Harvard Law Review, he knew that he had the potential to have a major national career. And I think from that moment, he was very cautious and very careful.
All right. So from the age of what, he's 24 when he shows up at Harvard, we have here, this seems improbable, but I think you argue that it's just factually the case. We have to conclude that it's the case. At the age of 24, he's a convinced man of the left and convinced of his own talents and future. At the age of 24, he thinks he'll become a national figure. True?
His immediate goal was to become mayor of the city of Chicago. That was his dream. Harold Washington was his idol. But once he was selected as editor of the Harvard Law Review, he realized that it could go even higher than that. I mean, if you were just a law student and all of a sudden you were in the New York Times and people were paying you a lot of money for your life story, you'd be pretty optimistic about your political future, too.
Once again, from Radical in Chief, Stanley, I'm quoting you. If the full extent of Obama's radicalism has been kept under wraps by Obama himself, it should nonetheless have been obvious in 2008 that Obama was far from the post-racial, post-ideological, post-partisan politician presented to the country by the mainstream press and the Obama campaign alike, close quote. Two questions. Why did the mainstream press so willingly collaborate, one almost might say, in putting across what ought to have been clear to them was a fabrication?
Well, of course, there was a genuinely inspiring story in 2008 of America coming close to and then finally electing the first African American as president. It was a deeply inspiring story, and I think we can all get some inspiration from it. And
so you cut everybody involved a lot of slack.
I don't actually cut them slack, but I'm just trying to explain what they were thinking.
All right.
And I think that's a large part of what they were thinking. And I think at least some members of the media were a little bit more savvy than that, and they knew that this fellow was far to the left, and that was exactly what they wanted, and they didn't want to give the game away.
Andrew Ferguson of the Weekly Standard, quote, "There is indeed a name for the beliefs that motivate President Obama, but it's not socialism. It's liberalism." This is a refrain in review after review, even quite friendly reviews of the book. Look, Stanley has all kinds of factually compelling material here, but who cares? Why go into this strange John Bircher, slightly crazy, McCarthy, all kinds of accusations can attach to you if you're saying socialist.
Right.
So why do you do it? I return to this. How would you distinguish between, and if Andy were here, how would you explain to him that he's mistaken, that it's not just liberalism?
Well, there's an overlap between the program of modernized socialism and contemporary liberalism. And part of what socialists did was to work within the Democratic Party quite self-consciously, but seizing on those elements of the standard liberal program that were most likely to put the country on an irreversible structural path towards socialism. Now, look at what President Obama did with the health care bill. Where it's just coming out now that most of his advisors told him not to focus on health care. They said this is politically very damaging. Obama actually moved in that direction against the advice of almost every senior political advisor he had. That, to me, is a sign that we're dealing with something a little different than the standard liberal agenda. And there are, and I talk about this in the book, other little things like proxy access. No one pays attention to this, but Obama's mentors believed in something they called corporate democracy. This, again, was the idea of grabbing hold of the economy from below, getting a kind of de facto public ownership. Things like that have been salted into the financial reform bill, and no one pays any attention to it. And it's really understanding the socialist background that reveals that. But I also have to say, if people only decide that Obama is way far to the left of where he's presented himself, I'd be happy with that.
You will have done a good day's work.
Yeah, you don't have to buy the whole deal.